am Negan.
I am Negan.
What's up, people? It's Friday night, and you know what that is? It's another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast, and this is for Season 10, Episode 21, Diverged. I am your host, Adam Vale. Tonight I'm joined by Richard Billy Jr.
What's up, listeners and viewers?
and the one and only Carlos.
Yo, what's going on?
We're hyped. We were waiting for this episode. Oh, we were waiting for it. No, we weren't. But you know what? In some way we were. In some way we were, because this is part 2 of the Daryl and Carol show. Right? So it's like, all right, we knew this was coming. We figured out of the 6 of these side stories that they were going to continue this story. But the problem, for at least on my end, I'm just going to say right off the bat, this was a snoozer. This is not the episode that you show a friend of yours that's like, yo, is Walking Dead still going on? Yeah, you want to see something? Not this one. Not this one. Because this one, it's like, this is the type of thing when you start thinking, like, man, maybe they ran out of content. Because, I mean, you're chasing a mouse or a rat. Or what's going on here? This is like 20 minutes in. What? Yeah, it's, oh, man, it definitely felt like filler. Definitely felt like filler. I mean, we're looking for content. They said they were going to create content. We've gone over this before. We know not to expect too much. That's fine, but I'm just saying, this one dragged. So before we go into it, anybody quick notes you want to say about this episode? Carlos, you had some stuff to say.
Yeah, this was the worst episode I've seen in a while.
Oh, damn.
You could tell, like, we've been talking about this all season long. They've been separated. They can't get everyone together. The whole COVID measures have not allowed the cast to sort of, work with each other. It's been just little catches of people here, some people there, and do our own little side stories. In this one, it's just like, not only was it that, but I felt like there wasn't really a story that they were trying to, like, there wasn't any overarching narrative that they were trying to, reach out. It's I don't understand why this episode exists. We never got anywhere.
Yeah, no, it felt like Walking Dead, a reality show, almost like as if I'm waiting for Carol to stop and start looking at the camera. I was like, well, today I had a hard time. I mean, this damn dog, right, and the mouth. Like, that's it, because nothing really happened. We were just watching them live their lives. That was it. It was just living their lives. Rich?
I mean,
oh yeah, keep going.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you keep going.
So it's we've gotten a lot of these types of episodes, but the other ones at least were compelling. We got more from the characters, or characters that we might have not seen or been with as long as Daryl and Carol, since we've been with them since the beginning of the show. So this episode, I mean, why couldn't we gotten more Jerry? Why couldn't we get more of his story? I think if they wanted to do this type of episode when it's just getting to know characters in their daily lives, why not do it with a character that we haven't really seen in a while? Jerry was just chilling in the cut, like
doing his little
family,
side thing. Do something like that. There was
like, where's his family? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't expect to see his kids during the pandemic, but do a story with him. Carol and Daryl, they are what they are. We know who they are. We know they're going to get their own show. This doesn't really help sell that, and it seems like this is some of the intentions for it were.
Yeah.
So I would like to respond to that comment made by Carlos.
Do it.
I agree 100% with everything that he said. This is by far one of the worst episodes that I have seen so far in this little small break of episodes. And if I could make a comparison, last weekend, for some odd reason, I decided to watch Tom and Jerry.
Oh.
And I was very surprised to see now a live action version of Tom and Jerry featuring real animals as opposed to cartoons, because that's what it felt like seeing this dog chase after the rat, and Carol also go after the rat. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree. Jerry, my guess is that we'll see plenty of Jerry next season, and then he will probably be killed off, right afterward. Because I know one thing we spoke about in the past on this show is that when Jerry had those last words with Ezekiel, it felt like that was the end of like one of them was not going to survive. So curious to see if that's what happens. But yeah, I agree. It would have been great to focus on other characters, but I guess they decided we need to continue this Carol Daryl story, because I do know that they're going to be a big part of what happens next season. I'm guessing, but we'll see.
And speaking of continue, here we go. So it continues off from when we saw them at the cabin. So they're walking off, and they have that kind of awkward moment. They're not really talking. They're kind of upset. You got Daryl trying to make nice with Carol. It's like, are you okay? It's like, you don't want to get on the bike. It's for, no, I got this. I'm going to walk. I'm like, walk? How far are you? Again, show me a damn map. Because it's little things like this that get me upset. Because it's like, if it's not that far that you can walk, then why did Daryl bring his motorcycle? What's going on? Whatever. But she decides, no, she's good. She can walk. All right. The dog decides. I think the dog pretty much, which is the name Dog, decided to go with Carol. Right. It wasn't like he said go with her. He didn't do any one of those. I mean, I don't think that dog's that trained. So it decides to go. So there you go. We got Daryl on his own, and they split off. So we'll just go into Daryl's little side story because not much happened. He goes off, he finds his bike up on the road, he's riding down, trying to just navigate through, I guess, is he looking at this point still for Rick, or is he looking for his lady friend? Not too sure, but you know what, doesn't even matter, because he pulls, it looks like the gas valve or something on his bike, one of the cables falls off and he's leaking oil or gas. So then he's like, well, I gotta go in and scavenge for some parts. And there we go. That's it for his end. And then on Carol's end, we see that she enters back to Alexandria. We do see some people at the gate, and that's the last time you see any of these people or the gate. All right, so that must be some stock footage that they had, because after that cut, and it's just Carol and Jerry. She sees Jerry. Jerry's talking to her, doing some small talk, talking about all the stuff that she missed out on. Maggie has some other people that have ransacked the kitchen. It's a mess. All kinds of stuff's going on. The solar panels are broken. They had a rat infestation with some of the wheat. That's gone bad. And can you make something to eat? Because he's hungry. His stomach was really damn loud, right? Growling. And she was like, do you know the story about rock soup? And she tells the story of rock soup. And that's, I don't know if you guys ever heard that story, but I've heard versions of it. And I've heard it called con soup. Because it's almost conning somebody. It's like, hey, listen. If you give me this one piece, like I have these ingredients, but I just need a few more ingredients to make something amazing. And then they keep giving you, and then eventually you made something out of nothing. Because you didn't have anything to begin with. No one questioned. And that's sort of like what she was saying with the rock soup. Guy shows up in town. He was like, hey, I need some supplies to trade. He's like, what do you have? He's like, I have a rock. But I can make a soup out of rock soup. And they're like, oh, well, okay. But what does he do? He goes around and he asks everybody for a little this, little that. And eventually he makes a soup. And that's what she plans on doing. Just finding whatever she can around to make this soup. And boy, does it drag with this whole segment of making a soup. Right? She goes in. Wait, all right, go, Carlos.
The moral of the story of this whole episode is that dog is a hell of an actor. I think that's the best part of the story for me. It's like, man, that dog is really good.
Yeah, he's well trained. Well trained.
All these emotions, all these commands. He stays still. He was shaking in some parts. I'm like, I felt bad. I just wanted to hug it, man.
Yeah, it was interesting. There were certain parts, and I got my own issues with just, and this stuff I've always brought up whenever I watch any of these type of period pieces or things going on where they're supposed to be smelly and dirty people. That dog should be filthy, and she brings him up on the bed. I don't want to jump the gun, but we'll get to that. So she brings him into the house. They go inside. They start looking around. She's trying to put together something to eat with whatever she could find. And there's a rat. One of the rats that Jerry was talking about, and he was running around, and the dog is barking, going nuts. Now, at first, I don't know about you guys, but I thought there was something more than just a rat. Because that dog was just going out of control. One room, bark, she's like, all right, calm down. But then he goes running, and then he's just barking at the wall. So the first thing I thought, I was like, oh, there's something on the other side of the wall. Maybe there's a walker. Maybe there's someone hiding there. Maybe there's somebody from the Whisperers. We're gonna bring that back. Someone's been hiding there the entire time. Because maybe he knows something. But no, that's not the case. Or at least at the beginning part, we don't think it's the case because we see that there is a rat. And so she says, Carol decides that she's gonna make a trap, and she does. She puts together a trap. And we watch her do the trap. We watch her do the meal. I mean, this whole scene, before I move forward any further, I mean, what did you guys think? Like, this was really dragging. At least for me, I was like, do we need to see this unless it's going to build up to something significant behind that wall? I feel like this is all filler. Like, this was just a waste of... Because you were literally seeing her chop up mushrooms and other veggies and stuff. What about you, Rich? What did you think for this part?
I agree that everything dragged on with the soup. Because, it's funny how at one point in this episode, Jerry is talking about he's hungry. And Carol's still making this soup. I think it's about a day later is when she finally sees Jerry again. And she sees him multiple times in the episode, but
you're right. You're right. The next day, because she does go to sleep. All right, but we'll get to that part. But yeah. But did you think anything was on the other side of the wall with the way this dog was spazzing out over barking and running from room to room? Or did you just think it was just about the rat? He was just chasing it.
Yeah, I thought it could have been something else. But it always came back to the rat because there was a scene where she was chasing after the rat. And we know that the rat went into the wall. So I figured, okay, so if it's nothing else, it's probably just the rat is making a lot of noise. And that's what annoyed her. That's why she was going to tear down her wall to get to the rat.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right, so we'll just...
Yeah, I felt like someone was there. Like, because it all started with the dog smelling that little, I don't know what the hell, that cloth thing. I'm like, oh, he recognizes someone. Maybe someone owned it previously. Maybe it was
maybe his owner. Maybe it was the girl.
Maybe it was the girl. So
yeah.
So I'm like, what, is she hiding behind the wall or something? What's going on? So when it turns out it was a rat the whole time, I'm like,
yeah, that was a letdown, but
it was. It was.
Yeah. See, it sounds to me, Carlos, like you have just written a far better outcome for this episode than the writers did of this show, because that would have been perfect if it was Daryl's former girlfriend that was there, because there would be so many questions about, well, how did she know where they were at and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
it would have just made things more interesting. I mean, even though it seems kind of weird that why the hell would she be behind a wall of a Carol's house out of everyone's houses? But I mean, they could have done something to spruce things up. This was just, yeah, go ahead.
It could have been something crazy. Maybe somebody killed her and hit her body in the wall. I know it'd be far-fetched for something like that, but who knows? It could have been anybody. Even if it wasn't the owner, maybe it was just a smell of one of the enemies that he helped defend his owner against. That's why I was thinking maybe a whisper or somebody. Like, he was going to help. I don't know. But we'll just keep going on this part, because Carol then eventually she says a little comment, right? Like, locks him up not lock him up, but the rat in the garage of the house. She puts the trap, and she thinks, all right, that's it. By the time I come back, he's going to be caught. So she passes Jerry again, just saying, hey, I'm going to go get some more little veggies or whatever herbs I can find. She goes out into the plain fields. You see some more walkers, and she's frustrated. She's still pissed off about the argument that she had with Daryl, and she starts killing them. It's like, all right. Whatever. She picks up some of the herbs and then she heads back. So that's what's going on her end. So we'll jump back to her in a little bit. So then now we jump over to Daryl. And we see Daryl, he finds a car, he's looking around. Now we know what he's looking around for. There's some cabling so he can fix the oil leak that he had on his bike. He doesn't find anything, but then he does find another car. Now this car, and this, I guess it was the camera angles that was sort of bothering me, because I wasn't sure what was happening to this car. Because at first it looks like the car is just on solid ground, right? Like, all right, well, he's walking up, he's looking around, there's a walker inside trapped. He doesn't give a shit. He's like, all right, he's trapped inside. So he pops a hood, he finds one cable he's looking for, he tries to get underneath, And then that's when the walker starts moving around from the front to the back seat, and it shifts the car, and the car starts sinking and lifting up on different points. Did you see anything? Like, was it in mud, or it didn't? It looked like solid ground. Why would he get underneath a car if it was sinking?
It didn't really make sense to me. I didn't understand why he just didn't kill the walker. Like the car started moving, right? And tilting. I'm like, yo, get out of there, kill the walker, and then just go back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why it's like, oh, let me try to get it.
I guess he really needed needed this piece to fix his motorcycle, so he was willing to get crushed by a car to get it.
Yeah. to get to the bike where you could have just walked back home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he walked back home just like the way Carol did. He could have just walked it back, and clearly she did it all within that day because it was still daylight.
And that goes back to Adam's point about, it's not very clear the geography of all these things, because it's like, why would you risk killing yourself over the bike? Do you need it because it's super far away, or can you just walk your bike back all the way back to the Alexandria?
Yeah. Well, he finds what he's looking for. He heads back to his bike. He walks it up to another train track. I would love to see some more trains in The Walking Dead, because you see all these beautiful tracks. So he starts fixing the bike. A walker comes up. He takes his crossbow out. He shoots it. Does that whole thing. But then he sees that there's a bunch of walkers further up on the rail tracks there. He takes out his binoculars. What exactly catches his eye? I watched it twice. I don't see what lured him over to that he had to go venture out into that group. Did you guys see what caught his eye?
It was the walker in the military suit, because he's like, oh, he probably has a Swiss Army knife or something with it.
So that's what it was. It was just something. All right, because I wasn't sure. I was like, well, I know it's not the girlfriend, or else he would show more emotion. I'm like, oh man, she turned into a walker. I failed her, But no, that wasn't the case. Because then you see him look off, and then he's like, all right, he starts walking, and as he's walking, I don't know. I have a lot of little gripes. I mean, you've heard it before. I gripe about how a guy who wants to be sneaking around everywhere with his crossbow drives a motorcycle, which is fucking loud. So that defeats the point. If anything, go get yourself one of those pro mountain bikes. Then there you go with some mountain tires. You're working there. But no. Anyway, the reason why I bring it up is because here it is. He's like walking up on the road and he snaps a twig and he's like, uh-oh. And then they all turn around. And it's like, I mean, whatever, man. Come on now. So then he runs past them, falls down the ditch, right? And then, of course, there's a walker there. He does a whole little fight. Do you ever really think he's in danger? This thing is on top of him and putting pressure. This is the part that I also don't get. Like, this thing is dead. It should be light. It's thin. I'm looking at. I see with my eyes. It's a thin walker that's probably been dead for a while. You should be able to just push this shit right off you. It's not like one of these big bloater ones, a monster type. But no, they got to make it seem like he's in serious danger. How cool would that be if this is how he died? I'm sure a lot of people are.
It would have made the episode a lot more interesting. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. I hope when something crazy happens that it does happen like that on an off episode that no one is expecting. There's no build up, and it's just like, wow, that just happened. Yep, it did. Whoops. All right, keep going. Yeah. So he gets what he needs to get, and then all the walkers start that he ran past. They just start falling into the pit. But whatever, he's good. One little part, and I think it happens after, right, when he heads back to his bike and he's fixing. And it almost, when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, did they do a bad cut? Because it looks like he needs help. And then you see a hand that comes from like the camera angle, the camera hand, as if it were an FPS. You see a hand him the tool. Do you remember that? And then he grabs it, but then you see him like rubbing his head and shaking. He's like, no, that can't be there. It's like, so is that supposed to be like, oh, he misses Carol's help? He misses having her around, to hand him tools and stuff. It's like, or is he thinking about the girl? But then again, we don't see any real flashbacks with the girl, so it's not so much of who's on his mind, because he's still looking for Rick, and he's a man on a mission, and we'll see. But then that was it, right? He fixes it up and poof, he's off. So we're done until they meet up again. So then we'll jump back to Carol. So after Carol does her little, I guess, just a vent to kill off these walkers, and she heads back. She starts putting together the soup, and then this is what you were talking about, Rich, where it looks like the day had passed, right? It was already night, and she's laying down, and the dog is laying with her, and this is where I had issues, because I'm like, it's a dirty dog, you didn't bathe it, it's licking your face, it's laying on your sheets, come on now, who does this? Clean the dog. Oh man, I think too much about things. They don't ever go to the bathroom. No one ever has to go to the bathroom. No one ever has a toothache. What's going on here? Just saying. You just gotta bring up some of the things. It's the little side pieces that you could bring into the story to make it a little more human, right? Just connect with it. So while she's doing this, in the middle of the night, the dog starts licking her face. I'm like, this is it. This is where this show is going to pick up. Sort of like what we've seen in some of the other episodes where we've seen some Father Gabriel, the surprise, right? I'm like, oh, this is going to be our surprise. So the dog, which is dog, is licking her face and growling. It's like trying to wake her up, like, get up, something's here. And so she gets up and she starts hearing the noises and, they're sneaking around and she has her lantern. And I'm like, this is it. Something's going to happen. And again, they're pointing at this wall. Something's in the wall. Carol goes nuts, starts smashing it up, breaking everything out. Like, okay, all right, what's there? Nothing. Two things piss me off with this. One, that the big reveal was nothing. And two, where's Jerry? Where's everybody else running? With all the screaming and the banging, you would think within a community like this, somebody would run over like, holy shit, you need help. Are you under attack? Is something going down? Not a single person shows up. And that really breaks me out of the whole thing. Because then it's like, yes, we understand the situations, the limitations for filming, but yet you're telling me a story. If you can't tell me the proper story, don't tell me the story. You know what I mean? Then you could have had it where they stayed at the log cabin. And then that way it would make sense, because then, yes, no one is going to come running if they hear all this banging. But no, she is within the confines of Alexandria. She is there. We know Jerry's there. We saw the people early on near the gate. There are others there. There should be actually hundreds of people there. So you would think somebody would run over. No one came running over. Was I the only one looking too far into all the expectations of this scene? Carlos?
No, I mean, well, actually, yeah, maybe, because I didn't expect to see anybody else. I mean, when we saw Alexandria, we didn't see Negan, we didn't see Maggie, we didn't see Judith, we didn't see any of those people from the start. I'm like, oh, we're not gonna get them this whole episode, so don't expect to see them. We saw Jerry, and that was to the extent of what this civilization, this current civilization, is composed of for this episode. So I wasn't expecting that much, complexity to all of that stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Even if Jerry would have showed up, at least continue on with Jerry and have Jerry come running in. And it's like, oh, what happened? I hear all this banging, I hear all this noise, and you need help. And I was like, yeah, there's a ghost. I'm being haunted.
Yeah, this was like an episode where it's like, oh, we're just gonna get Carol, sort of, kind of like how, I don't know if you guys watch Breaking Bad, but there's like this episode called The Fly.
Yep.
And it's just Walter White just trying to get this fly, and it's all in one room essentially. This kind of gave me those kinds of vibes, and I'm like, oh, this is like, I don't expect to see anybody here unless it's a big surprise.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment and say I understand exactly what you mean, and I will say, yes, very similar to that episode. However, that was a better episode.
Oh yeah.
In terms of what, because it actually told the story, and there was actually an ending to it. We're at the end with the fly. So, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then here we go. She goes to sleep. She wakes up in the morning. Boom. She still didn't catch the rat. She opens up the gate, and we see Jerry. Jerry takes a peek in. He doesn't mention anything like, I heard some noises. None of that. And of course, they're talking about the soup. He's still hungry. He did not get that soup. So hopefully it's ready now. You know, so they try to get into this like deep conversation about views on things, and he starts talking about Ezekiel and his point of view of hand. It was a lot of BS. It was a lot of filler because I was like, I don't care about this. None of this makes sense. You know, I understand you're trying to tell this story of this connection between these two and what's happening, but it's not working. And trying to link up that you need people, and it's all about people, because then once they hug, what happens? We see Mickey Mouse over there running out, and they were like, oh, there he is. And first off, no, they would never do that. Rats don't run out just in the open, broad daylight like that, and especially not next to human feet. They're gonna run along the walls. They follow the walls. That's just how they track. Yeah, so he was like, oh yeah, okay, well, it's out, yay. You know, and then all of a sudden we see Daryl coming in with his bike, and then they start talking. He was like, oh, what happened to you? It's like, I could say the same for you. And you know, they just playing that whole little game, a little flirty. They're always a little flirty. I don't understand what the writers are going with this. Is this just to mess with the audience, or are they planning on actually pursuing something like this? I don't think so. I don't think this is the right time, especially not with Daryl. He has two love interests, right? We found out he had one for a few years ago, and then he still has Connie that's stuck in a cave, as far as he knows. Yeah, so I don't.
Yeah, she's out of the cave.
Yeah, no, she's out, but I mean, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. So
let me. So if you don't mind, I will make a few quick comments. So first and foremost, the conversation between Jerry and Carol, I also agree, a very weak conversation. But I guess what they was trying to go for is that Carol had a hard time admitting that she was wrong, and when she finally admitted it to Jerry, then here comes the whole symbol of the mouse is leaving now, as a sign that Carol has opened up and she has accepted that she was wrong. So I guess that's what they were going for with the whole rat, because the rat was there the whole time for this episode. Then once she had that conversation, all of a sudden the rat is gone. So I guess that's what they were going for.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, all right, fine, but that didn't do anything for the episode. That didn't do anything for the viewer. It's like, oh, I get it. Oh, no, it didn't do that.
I agree, and that goes to the other point that I was going to make, is this is why this was a bad episode, because there wasn't a resolution. You know, it's obviously tension between Carol and Daryl, and then by the end of the episode, that tension is still there. Even when she's saying, I have your part. Do you want it back? No, you can keep it. Yeah. The tension is still there, and that's going to continue well into season 11. So it's like there was no resolution at the end of this episode. They went their separate ways, and then they came back. They spoke, and then they both again went back into their respective houses and went to sleep. So it's like it wasn't really a resolution as far as what was going on.
And she also made a little comment about that when she was talking to the dog back in the house. Remember, she said something about when I don't remember the phrase, but she said something about like apology or something. It doesn't really solve anything. That's what her dad always said. Yep. Something to that effect. And you're right, nothing got resolved in this episode. But then again, what else didn't get resolved is that I don't feel the need to see any more with the Carol and Daryl. I
agree. I agree.
And I understand. We're going to have one more episode, and from what we all understand, that's going to be about Negan. It's going to be great, but I'm just talking about future thinking, where if the rumors are true, and there's not much of a rumor, they've already said it is going to be Carol and Daryl. It's going to have a different name, but they're going to be the focus point of that series. I'm not thrilled by it. You can't do this. This can't be a build-up. This is not like when you watch a certain show and you see some characters or two characters on it, and you're like, man, if they had their own show, this would be awesome. I'm not screaming that internally for this. I'm like, oh, I wish they had a Carol and Daryl show. What, we're getting one, mind blown. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not getting that vibe. That's not what I want from this. Daryl, yeah, fine. But actually, I would rather if it's not just Negan, then Negan and Daryl. Have them go live a crazy life, because they're going to butt heads with things. But Carol and Daryl, I don't know.
I agree.
So, keep going.
Let me just make one quick comment, and then we can go to Carlos. As you already mentioned, next week's episode is going to be about Negan. I will tell you right now though, if there is not a conversation or an encounter between Negan and Maggie until next season, I will be very disappointed because they haven't really had an encounter yet. Yes, they've seen each other. There wasn't much said. So I would think that sooner or later there has to be a conversation because that relationship. I think if this episode was about those two characters, that would have been a far better episode because we haven't seen them really interact, and they have to work together now because they're in the same community. So if we don't get some type of development with that, I'll be disappointed next week.
Yeah, yeah. Carlos?
All I'll say is just you know, this episode kind of just brought me down because I was expecting more of a ramp up episode because the last couple of episodes they've been fine, but they've been on the slow side. It's like more getting to know the characters, character building, not really moving the overarching story, maybe except for the princess stuff in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode just brought it down to like level 10. And the next episode, we'll see what that has in store. If it has Negan, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna see Negan and Maggie. I don't know if there was a rumor that's saying that there's gonna be like a Negan backstory.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what it is.
So if we get Negan backstory, then I won't expect Negan and Maggie to interact at all. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I don't think you can get any worse than this episode. To be honest, this was thinking this reminds me of like season 2 level bad episodes.
It's like they're struggling for content. They're like, all right, we just got to come with someone. And again, yes, we understand the situation, but still, it's like this was. The other ones had some good surprises. They all had some. Maybe they didn't start off strong, but they ended off strong. And this one started weak and ended weak. It did nothing. It did nothing. That besides that one weird hint, like I mentioned, where in first person you just see a hand come out and to give something. So it's like, oh, so Daryl is hallucinating. He's definitely have some issues. He's seeing someone. That was it. Besides that, what else did we get out of this? There was nothing. Yeah, I brought up before. In fact, before we were recording, I'll bring it up now. She did find a little trinket, and if anybody knows, go ahead, put your comments in over on YouTube, because we don't know what she picked up. She found something, and even Jerry was like, "What is it?" It's like, I don't know. Something I picked up around. I don't know what it was. If it's related to anything, or maybe it's nothing, and it's going to play a big part later on. Because I don't think that's the part she was talking about with Daryl. When she was like, "Oh, I have this," and he was like, "Keep it." I don't think that was it, or maybe it was. Maybe there you go. Maybe I answered my own question. Whatever. But that was it for that. I mean, but before we go, I'm wondering if anyone's watching, like any new viewers watching this show, like just jumping in now or trying to see what's going on, because maybe if they're not up to date and don't really know, it really looks like the show has fallen flat. Yeah, especially from this. And so I'm wondering if a lot of people, especially like the hardcore Walking Dead fans, they're going to watch regardless. And they're going to give it a pass. Like I am. Yeah, this episode sucked, but I'm not saying freaking burn the whole franchise. It's like, yeah, you got a bad episode. What I'm trying to get at is I'm hoping that a large majority of, I want to say, casuals that watch this don't fall off, because they have to understand, yeah, it's trickling now. This is pretty bad. It's pretty bad, right? But it's going to get better. And I'm assuming not just because of the Negan, but once Walking Dead comes back for their final season, it's going to be balls to the wall. This is it. They have nothing else to prove. They have no other surprises. They're going to throw everything at us, because then they have plans for the spin-offs and all the other stuff. So we are going to see deaths. We're going to see craziness. I hope we get back to the grittiness of some of the earlier seasons, especially with the governor and a lot of things that happened. I really hope we see that. But my whole thing is, I hope that the casuals that tune in and flick through, or still have it on their DVR, and then they're like, oh, let me see what's going on. What the hell is this? Should delete. It's like, why do I still have a season pass on this? Why? I hope those people stick around. And if you're one of those who just said, listen, I'll listen to some guys talk about this, but I'm not watching, consider watching it. consider watching it, at least for the next episode, and then going into it. If it's next one sucks and the first few episodes are fine, wash your hands. But remember, there's still Fear the Walking Dead, which is still up there. That's right now, that's higher than The Walking Dead for me, because it's a solid show. But I don't know. In closing, anything you guys want to say? Share? Rich?
Oh no, I would just say definitely looking forward to the Negan episode. I don't believe that it is possible to mess that episode up, but we shall see what happens.
Carlos?
Yeah, everything you guys have said, I echo. I just hope we get better.
Yeah,
it gets better. That's all we can hope for. The only way is up.
That's it. After this episode, it's only up, because man, it can't get any lower, especially not when it's with the topic of Negan. Come on now. All right, so thanks again, everybody tuning in. Thanks for subbing on YouTube and on Spotify and on iTunes. Definitely seeing some numbers come in, and that's great. Go ahead, just keep spreading the word. It's about Walking Dead, man. You see, we're not hawking all kinds of stuff at you. We're not doing all that shit. We're just here to talk about a show that we love. That's it. We love this franchise. We love it. Want to keep it going, because eventually one day it probably will be gone. You know, and so at least we can. That's it. And we're like, hey, we were there. We were there for the con. We were there for the show, and then we were there for the demise. So there we go. Thanks again, and we will be back next week for the all important Negan episode. Thanks again, everybody. Peace.
Peace out.